Phoenix Suns reportedly have made major traction in regards to a Kevin Durant trade, according to Shams. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, the Atlanta Hawks plan to continue to build around Trae Young, and the Sacramento Kings have 2 point guards on their board. We're going to talk about all that and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today. I want to start off with this. According to Shams Charania, that the Suns are working on that Kevin Durant trade and may even be further along than what we initially thought. Shams saying this on Thursday on NBA Today, saying there is traction on the Kevin Durant trade scenarios. There are some teams motivated to get a deal done sooner rather than later. Durant could be moved by the draft, which will take place in 2 weeks. Durant's trade possibilities could be tied to whether the team acquiring him is motivated to extend his contract. Shams also did point out that that the reality is that Giannis Antetokounmpo is not expected to hit the market, but we'll get more on that in a little bit. But all right, let's talk about this. With Suns potentially making, we heard earlier in the week that they want to get something done in the draft. That's when this could be announced, the week of the draft. We are 12 days away from the NBA draft. By the way, I can't wait to just get that out the way. There's going to be so much to break down after the NBA draft of what teams won the draft, lost the draft, all things like that. We'll have that episode out for you the day after the draft, so stay in tune with us for that one. But 12 days until the NBA draft. And so if the Suns want this done, I think it makes a lot of sense. The Suns are going to kind of want to do, and they're probably already doing their due diligence on the back end on some of the prospects in this draft. But for a team that acquires Kevin Durant, because it has been said that Kevin Durant does not want to be a one-year rental, that means they're going to want to work out the extension with Kevin Durant, so then they can start making moves in free agency around what Kevin Durant's contract extension could look like, to start planning for that going forward and what they're going to do. So it makes a lot of sense for both sides to want to get this trade done as soon as possible, no matter what team is acquiring Kevin Durant, because of that unique set of circumstances. And so hearing that the Suns have already started making some traction, how much traction that is remains to be seen when it comes down to it, but it makes sense. Right now, we heard that there are some teams that of course Kevin Durant prefers to go to and things like that. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about that on yesterday's episode, and all those teams made sense for Kevin Durant in different areas. You know, it was the usual suspects as far as the Houston Rockets, the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Spurs were mentioned in that as well. The New York Knicks were even mentioned. So those are some teams that apparently Kevin Durant has an interest, and that his business partner is already working with the Phoenix Suns to get that done. And I think it just makes sense for all parties involved. The Suns also, once they understand what they're getting back in the Kevin Durant trade as far as draft capital and whatever players, they can start also planning forth what they're going to do with the rest of the regular season. And if I'm the Phoenix Suns, this is the speculation part. This is not part of Shams reporting or anything like that. If I am the Phoenix Suns, also, I'm hoping that in making the move for Kevin Durant, maybe you can entice Bradley Beal to come up off his no trade clause, because he may not just be a factor in what your team's going to do going forward. We'll see what that remains. It's completely possible that maybe they make a trade to where Bradley Beal actually has a better fit on this team after that point. But the Suns already have Tyus Jones, who's going to be a free agent, who I think can actually help that team stay around a little bit better if they want to try to keep him. But this Kevin Durant trade is the first thing that needs to fall. But keep in mind here as well, the Phoenix Suns are still a second tax apron team. So unless there's some offseason rule that I'm not necessarily aware of or something like that, they can still only take back a 1-for-1 trade for Kevin Durant unless they get under that second tax apron first. So that may be another reason why they want to have the terms agreed to with other teams, so that they can maybe make that precursor move. By most people's estimation, you have to make a precursor move before you can trade Kevin Durant, because you can't trade multiple players. Even if you get multiple players back, you can't aggregate salaries in a trade when you're over the second tax apron, which the Phoenix Suns are still $11 million over the second tax apron. So unless something else is happening that we're kind of not aware of, the Suns still need to make another trade first before moving on from Kevin Durant. So whether that's Cody Martin, whether that's Royce O'Neal that gets them close to getting under that second tax apron, a Grayson Allen move, there's still things that need to be done here if they're going to move on from Kevin Durant and want to take back multiple players because of the size of Kevin Durant's $54 million contract. So those are all things that play a huge role into all of this, and I guess we shall see what happens there and what the Phoenix Suns do. But a Kevin Durant trade feels like it's going to be the first domino to fall this offseason, and it could go down as early as next week. So stay in tune with us. Make sure you guys are following us. Hit that notification bell, because the moment the trade goes down, we'll have an episode out breaking down everything that happened with that trade. So make sure you guys stay in tune with us there. But let us know down below in this video, when you hear that the Suns have made some traction, what's the team that right now you think is going to be the one to walk away with Kevin Durant? Let us know that down below. Moving on from that, the Sacramento Kings are a team that's looking for a point guard. They're looking for a point guard to replace De'Aaron Fox, who they sent away. And it seemingly like where some people initially thought the Sacramento Kings could look to move a DeMar DeRozan or a Domantas Sabonis or something like that. Seems like they may be interested in getting a point guard in here and seeing what this team looks like, this core of Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Sabonis. They still got Keegan Murray down there as well, and what they look like with an actual point guard in here. So reportedly, this one comes from Jake Fisher of the Steinline. He says that the Kings have expressed interest in veteran guards Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon of the Washington Wizards, and the Phoenix Suns free agent Tyus Jones. I think all these players make sense at different levels. If they can acquire either Marcus Smart or Drew Holiday, who are also kind of players that are on their board as well, it makes some sense for the defensive aspect that they bring for that team, right? Marcus Smart, who's not what he once was prior as a defender, right? He's kind of starting to go on the twilight of his career, but I think he's still a player that he can pass well, he can defend well. You don't really need to rely on his offense a whole lot. The offense is not even one of the biggest things you're looking at from a Marcus Smart if you end up acquiring him for the Sacramento Kings. So it all makes some sense there. Jake Fisher goes on to report that the Sacramento's front office, which is led by Perry, is prioritizing improved playmaking as far as from their point guard position. Marcus Smart has 1 year left on his contract that pays him $21.5 million, right? He did win a Defensive Player of the Year award just in 2022 when it came down to it. He split time with the Washington Wizards and Memphis Grizzlies last year, where he scored 9 points, 3.2 assists, 2.1 rebounds, and 1.1 steals per game, only shooting 39% from the field. Malcolm Brogdon is an unrestricted free agent this summer. He averaged 12 points, 4.1 assists, and 3.8 rebounds, but I think he's going to have a pretty robust free agent market. I would think his experience, his defensive ability as well. He's a former Sixth Man of the Year. I think he is going to have his fair share, because I don't think he's going to be a very expensive option. Then you got the Drew Holiday. Now, that would mean that they are trading to get Drew Holiday, which all these players would have traded, but he has a pretty sizable contract. And even though he had a decent season, 44% shooting from the field, 35% from three, averaging 11 points per game, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists, he has a pretty sizable contract when it comes down to that one. So we'll see. He's heading into his 16th year in the league. And then Tyus Jones, 29, would make a lot of sense there. He's an unrestricted free agent. He played 81 games for Phoenix last year, 10 points, 5 assists, 2 rebounds. He has a really good assist to turnover ratio. So if they're prioritizing playmaking, not necessarily the defender, but is a really good playmaker and doesn't turn the ball over. I think all these players make sense at different degrees for the Sacramento Kings. We'll just see which guy that they end up going after. But let me know down below, when you hear these point guards that the Sacramento Kings are eyeing, which one do you think is most likely that they can get? Who do you think is the best fit for that team? And do you think the Sacramento Kings could actually salvage something and maybe go on a playoff run next year? Let me know that down below. All right, let's get into the next thing. Reportedly that the Atlanta Hawks are looking to move up in the draft, right? We've talked a lot about the Hawks. I've said before that I see a world in which they may move on from Trae Young. Well, it seems like, according to Jake Fisher, that's not going to happen. That the Hawks are actually looking to use their 13th overall pick and their 22nd overall pick to package those two things together to move up in the draft, as they want to continue to add talent. But this is still planned to be led by Trae Young, right? And that's the thing there. Fisher saying this. We wrote yesterday that any word of Atlanta looking to package picks 13 and 22 to move up in the first round hadn't reached us yet. Well, since publishing those words, various sources have indicated that they do believe the Hawks will fall right in line with OKC, Orlando, and Brooklyn as teams with multiple picks in the mid to late first round, exploring various avenues to move up the draft board. Rival teams have projected the Hawks as a targeting big man with whatever draft slots they ultimately ultimately have to operate from. After years of dangling Clint Capella on the trade block, Capella is finally expected to depart Atlanta via free agency this season, sources say, so the Hawks appear poised to have an opening for a center. Now, the Hawks are a team that's building. They got Jalen Johnson down there. They got Dyson Daniels down there. They got the number 1 overall pick from last year. They got Trae there. So it seems like while there have been some questions for me and some others on what the future of Trae is there, it seems like he's going to be staying there. Zach Lowe said that the plan right now is that I kind of want the Hawks to keep Trae Young long term. I don't think there's a great market for him, so I don't think there's a trade out there that completely just reorients the franchise in a positive way. If I can extend him at a decent number, I just kind of like their team, and I do think he'll change his style of play a little bit. And that's going to be the big question here. Trae has had basically the reins of the offense. As you have other players growing on that team, how much does he adapt to that? And then how successful are you in that? That's the question that's going to face Trae Young and this Atlanta Hawks team as they move forward. But it seems like the Hawks are committed to Trae Young and still building this young thing. And I don't really look at it as the 2 timelines. We know that the 2 timeline thing has garnered a lot of kind of disgust from fans because it doesn't always work. But I don't look at it necessarily being 2 timelines with Trae Young. I think Trae is still young enough to where he fits in the timeline while you're adding young talent. And if the Hawks can move up in this draft and get the big man that they covet, you have a team that you're solid all around basically at that point in time, right? You still have some pieces that you want to see how they're going to develop, but you have a team that has solid players all the way around. There's fit there. I think Trae Young and his passing and three-point shooting, that opens up the connectivity there. And I think it makes some sense for those teams, for that team to continue to build that. Just, I don't know how successful they're eventually going to be there, but that's where you're looking at the players that are going to continue to develop, to continue to hit their marks. And then at that point in time, you have a better team and a full-fledged deep team. So let's see there. When you hear this, why the Atlanta Hawks looking to move up in the draft and continue to build around Trae Young and his skill set there and him still being the leader of that team, do you think the Hawks can be a formidable team in the Eastern Conference, and can they get back to where they were, where they made the Eastern Conference Finals before? Let me know that down below. All right, so the finals are today. We got game 4 going on today, and the Oklahoma City Thunder find themselves at a 2-1 deficit. Now, that's not a huge deficit by any stretch of the imagination. The Thunder are still in this. If they can get a win tonight, the season's all even. Then it turns into a best-of-3 game series. Who can win 2 games out of the next 3 games if the Thunder can win tonight? But it's important that the Thunder, if they want to do that, they cannot go back down to OKC down 3-1. If they do, it's going to be crazy. For all the people that weren't high on this series, didn't think the series was going to be fun, I think that they've shown it is a fun series, and it will continue to be that. But Coach Mike Dangle said this: we stay pretty emotionally even, If you're going to get high on wins, the natural opposite of that is to get low on losses. And this team doesn't really swing violently between those two things. Never has. I think a lot of that is just the personality of the players, and they do a great job of that. There are new experiences for us, but we're experienced enough to know what is going to come down to. We got to take a look at the film yesterday. We got to understand first what happened in the game, and be able to define that accurately, and then look at things that we can improve on and go and apply those forward in game 4. And I think that's great words from Coach D here. I think overall, Rick Carlisle is an amazing coach, and I think he's showing that in how well he's coaching in this. And when Dangle says things like we need to look at the tape and figure out how to adjust, that's going to be the key in this series, the adjustments. And that's what, when you get 2 days between each game and you're just facing one opponent, that's where coaching becomes maximized at. And that's where I really have trusted the Pacers a little bit more at, because Rick Carlisle has done it before. Coach Dangle has not. This is his first time here in this situation. And how the X's and O's shake out here is hugely important to how this series ends up going. This is a hugely important game for the Thunder in game 4. They cannot come into this one and lollygag. You cannot do that. You have to put your foot. You have to do basically what you did in game 2. You got to put your foot on the neck of the Indiana Pacers and snuff out their energy early on, because this is a team that just refuses to go away. And if you give them just that little bit, they're going to be able to take advantage of it, right? And so now this Game 4 is important for both teams, because if the Thunder can win this, it turns into a 3-game series. If the Pacers win this, that means that the Thunder have to beat the Indiana Pacers 3 games in a row, and that's tough for any team, regardless of what your regular season success was going to be. So this watching this and watching the adjustments that happen in Game 4 are going to be hugely important to all of this, and we'll see which team comes out on top. This series has been hugely exciting. I hope that it continues. I hope we get another exciting game going back and forth between these two teams. But let me know you guys' thoughts down below. What are your projections for Game 4? Who do you have winning? Has what happened in the first 3 games changed your predictions on the series overall? Let me know that down below. Make sure you guys are following us at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything basketball related. I'll see you guys bright and early on the next one. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.